effective treatment for the Spanish flu 100 years ago. Now, this is nothing I thought of. Now they're realizing to use it for the current COVID patients, and it seems it may work. See, the whole idea is that your immunoglobulins in a recovered patient will work against the COVID virus in a non-recovered patient who's getting sicker and sicker. But the big question is, when do you want to give these immunoglobulins? When they get a fever and don't need the hospital, or when they're on a ventilator? At what point? It probably will work better the sooner you do it, but every medical procedure has some type of adverse reaction sometimes.
We have got a great guest with us today. He joins us live here in our broadcast. And this is definitely an interesting topic. We have a New York City doctor with us today. He's a microbiologist, and he is making himself available today to discuss plasma fusion transfusion from recovered COVID-19 patients as a treatment for those battling coronavirus. And you can get more information on the doctor's website, DeanHartScientist.com. That's DeanHartScientist.com. And for the people in the cheap seats in the back, DeanHartScientist.com. And you've been on television all over the place, Fox News, Washington Post, all these places. And you've got several medical degrees from prestigious institutions, including Hofstra University, University of California at Berkeley, Columbus University, College of Physicians and Surgeons. You've been published on an array of medical issues. So Doctor, Is this situation gaining any steam?
Okay, one thing you said, they're not all medical degrees. Some are clinicians, some are scientists. So a microbiologist is not a medical degree, although I am a clinician.
Yeah.
Let's just correct that. But
not a problem. Not a problem.
What was the question again?
My question is, is all this kind of gaining some steam as far as doing the plasma transfusion and everything?
Well, right now, it is not gaining so much steam because of the limitations within technology. All of a sudden, 2 months ago, we realized we have a pandemic, and getting all the equipment up to speed to test the immunoglobulins, to take it out. It's done in rare cases now, but most facilities don't have the wherewithal to use this treatment, but they will. This is definitely one of the treatments for the future. There's another medicine. They give you Revlimid from Gilead Scientific, and there's a bit of research that came out that was good on Friday, or Thursday night. The stock market went crazy because there's a bit of good information. We're so at the infancy of the treatment and certainly the vaccine for this deadly disease, so much more deadly than any flu we've ever seen. Sort of not quite as deadly as Ebola, but it's up there with a very deadly disease and so contagious. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that we are talking about, but in practice, the tests aren't out yet in mass quantities to test the population. That's the thing that will be the greatest breakthrough, when they finally get accurate tests in mass quantities.
So, John, do you have any questions for the doctor before we let our friend with her ears, Jay Bird Wells, jump in there? Go ahead, John.
I had read some articles. I mean, they didn't go into great detail on it, but about the plasma of recovered patients. Would that be something I know you said you weren't sure on the timing of it. Would that be something you'd want somebody beforehand to give them an immunity of sorts? Or is that something like you said, you would do when they have it to help them fight it?
See, if you're talking about giving somebody immunity that never caught the germ, the viral infection, you would not treat somebody prophylactically. The big question is, how soon in the disease would you want to give them immunoglobulins? Because most people, 25% to 50% are asymptomatic or just get a little sniffle and don't realize they ever got sick.
Yeah.
So The thing is, those people, you certainly don't want to inject my immunoglobulins into them. That's fraught with peril, and there are adverse reactions. Now,
Okay.
somebody on a ventilator, up to 80% of those people will die. So what the heck have you got to lose if you're on a ventilator and it's well-recognized treatment? So on a ventilator, you know you want to give it to them if you could, because you got nothing to lose. And if they've just got the positive test results, but they're not sick and they're asymptomatic, you wouldn't want to give them. The
Okay.
in-between is the question. At what point do you want to start them? When they're mildly sick, moderately sick, just about before a ventilator or on the ventilator?
Awesome. We have
Makes
got
sense there.
a great guest with us today. He joins us live here on our Sunday radio broadcast. And if you miss us live, you can find us on the mix on Tuesdays. And DeanHartScientist.com. Check out DeanHartScientist.com. He's got all sorts of things going on over there. He's got his public speaking. He's got some publications, even comic books, which I want to talk about here in a few.
Sweet.
Jay, do you have any questions for the doctor here?
Well, hey, if he's got comic books, let's skip the boring stuff. Let's get to the comic books.
Hey, you know the boring stuff that covers, the pandemic going on.
Yes.
I
So-
know.
Political.
I could actually bore you with some of the questions because that's kind of down my alley with studying DNA and cloning and stuff. So, and I also know how important it is for blood transfusions for cancer patients. So I know that they're out there and fighting this probably harder than most people with COVID. So.
Yeah, probably more than most people. Only a small sliver die or even need a ventilator. Even a small sliver even end up at the hospital ever. So yeah, cancer's but one's apples, one's oranges, but they're both rotten.
So, as we've got a great guest with us today. Dr. Dean joins us here on our broadcast. You can go over to DeanHartScientist.com for more information. That's DeanHartScientist.com. So, okay, I gotta know here. Tell me about the adventures of Dr. Dean E. Hart, the comic book series.
Yes.
This is
Oh, that
awesome.
was, so what happened is my resident joined my practice. My resident that I taught at Columbia University, he joins the practice for 20 years, and I'm king of the castle, and then he branches out and buys a bunch of practices. No, we went cold turkey and developed a bunch of practices and got very affluent. So he looks at my practice, that it's 30 years old, and he says, I want to buy your practice. This is my resident, my student. I'm his mentor. So I said, it's not for sale. I was too young to retire. So anyway, he offered me so much money, you just have to do it. At some point, it's just stupid not to when you divide it out over 10 years. So anyway, I sold the practice, looked around, knew I wasn't done and retiring to Florida anytime soon. I have a 10 and a 12-year-old roaming around my house right now, not going to school under quarantine. So I bought the practice, made me enough money where I divided out per year. I don't have to, but then I had to do something. So I saw all these crooks in Oyster Bay stealing all that taxpayer money in Nassau County on Long Island. It is so corrupt. It's probably as corrupt as China, and I hear they're pretty corrupt. So all this corruption's going on. So I figured this was the next frontier to go and try to displace the swamp creatures of Oyster Bay and Long Island.
That is awesome.
So, are you pictured in these comic books? Are you illustrated?
There's a caricature of me. There's a caricature of the guy that was county executive that is now on his way to the clink. The only reason they aren't sending him is because of the COVID. That's pretty wild. The guy was ready to be sentenced for the third time. They postponed it. The third time, now because of the COVID epidemic, they're not sending him to jail. He's going to jail, I forget, 4 or 5 years or something, the county executive. himself is going to jail, and they're not putting him in jail now because of the COVID. I guess it's the circle of life. You went to the politicians. Now we're back to COVID. He got a break.
So how did you come up with the Ford town clerk part of it? I'm looking at it on your website here. Has the adventures of Dr. Dean E. Hart, Ford town clerk. How'd the last part come up?
Yes.
Well, I wanted to run for something. In my town,
Okay.
there are already incumbents, of which I am not, and there are already the people in the majority, which I am not. So the incumbents are the people in the majority. So I did a couple times, and that was a position available and was just available. So I wanted, my mission wasn't to really get a job. My mission was to make the world a little better place and get these crooks out of my pockets and every other tax-paying citizen's pockets in our county. So the town clerk was just one of the things available, and I run for something. This was not, it would have been weird if I actually won and I had to be a clerk. I don't know if that would have been fun, but I was willing to do it if I could have made because you're keeper of the books and records as town clerk. So I get all the books and records, and if they don't let me have it, I go to the controller of the state and they subpoena him. So it's easy to really get to the bottom of it as town clerk. So it was an okay thing to try. Unfortunately, incumbents that have been elected 5 times in a row, it's hard to beat them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I love it, though.
I'll tell you, you've got some really cool things here, Doctor. You can get more information on these comic books over at deanhartscientist.com. That's deanhartscientist.com. And often we have medical professionals on this broadcast to talk. Been talking during this whole pandemic thing. None of them have their own comic books. So this is awesome.
But most of them don't get into the political milieu because they're too busy earning a living as a doctor.
Yes.
It just worked out that way. And, you know, when they do this thing with the World Health Organization, what a sham. With China giving them whatever they want to give them for propaganda purposes. They give it to the World Health Organization. Now, there's a Department of Energy or energy inspectors for nuclear bombs. They have access to everything. That's the way the World Health Organization should be run. The World Health Organization gets donated information from the government, whatever it feels like giving them. That's a load of malarkey. It costs us, what, billions of dollars, and they say, what do you want me to tell the other countries? It's a beautiful tourist attraction? Yeah, whatever. So the thing is, the World Health Organization should have the independence and power of the nuclear bomb inspectors, because this is the same as a nuclear bomb, isn't it? We're all sheltered in place. This is like what I remember when I was a kid. I'm not that young. There was the Cold War and the Cuban Missile Crisis, and they march us out of kindergarten and first grade and lean against the wall, put your hands over your head, and in my mind, I didn't think kiss my you-know-what goodbye. But, this was just terrorize little kids.
You're
don't have a prayer.
We have got a great guest with us today. Check out deanhartscientist.com. Now, also among some of your achievements, which I'm amazed that you are fascinating, my friend. You've won awards and was published on the covers of Alert Diver for your 35mm photographic artwork taken while scuba diving. Tell us about all this.
Well, back in the 35mm days, I was skilled in processing photographs as well as taking them. So even though they wanted a slide, I believe, for that Dive Alert Network magazine, I enjoyed it. You go to scuba diving in the winter down in the Caribbean, come back to New York, and it'll be snowing, and you go into your darkroom and relive the warmth of the Caribbean. But I love scuba diving. Going to visit another entity and being a guest of the sea creatures, it's just a beautiful thing. You just leave the earth behind in a way. It must be similar to going to outer space.
Wow.
It is pretty amazing. So let me get this straight. You've got some photo awards. You've got your own comic book. You're on you're on national and radio and TV talking about the COVID crisis.
Oh, by the way, one little tidbit. I just went back to school at Columbia University. I'm studying bioethics. I'm almost finished with my Master's of Science in Bioethics.
Jeez. You are way too smart to be on the Sunday radio program, sir.
No kidding.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I'm not sure it's smartest. It's just I enjoy learning, and it was what my parents imparted upon me. That was the best thing you could do in life, if you're lucky enough to be able to do it, is learn new things, get new passions in life. And if you're really lucky, you get to do it.
With the attempt of trying not to step on toes, do you have some Yiddish in your accent?
Oh yes, my mother was big on Yiddish, and she'd speak it all the time. But me, a few things. Oy vey. A few phrases I have, yes, but not too many.
That's awesome.
Well, at least you got some chutzpah to talk in Yiddish.
Yeah, well, Gay is into hate.